My wife, daughter, and I visited a farm show and got to see a lot of interesting tools and household items from the past, a few of which we recognized and were somewhat familiar with.
It's probably a gallbladder remover.
The original 4-in-1 tool.
Oh, cool. The weird thing.
Oh, I know what this is. Shaving ice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
what is that?
They still use these actually.
Saving ice?
Yeah, you use it to shave ice.
Figure, but no.
Can I see?
I had none right now.
You had no clue?
No.
They do. They still use it in Central and South America.
They still use it in Central and South America.
Do they?
Yep. And they have big ice blocks, and they'll stand there and go. And make what's
God.
called snow cones.
Oh,
and they
that's
pour
work.
syrup on top.
Put syrup. Yeah.
People buy it for like $1 a cup.
Okay.
Oh, here goes the candle snuffers.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, all the stuff
Yeah,
he
you
got
just-
is amazing.
It was time for me to edit the latest round of recordings from this podcast series, and the first interview featured quite a set-apart Hebrew.
I hit like three people's cars on my block coming into the park. And I left notes on their cars. It was me, I live here, please contact me, I will pay for the damages. And two of the people said, who does that? Like, Miss, how do you hit it? We didn't even know. And I said, well, I'm accountable to y'all, right? And you and my community, and I have to be a community person. I'm a humanitarian first. I'm a human being. I'm trying to treat you like I would want somebody to treat me. And so, I'm just cut from a different cloth.
You're listening to Fruit Bearers, a living Hebrew production provided by KingdomPreppers.org. I'm your host, Kingdom Prepper. This podcast will focus on the spiritual walk of those of you out there who are living the Israelite lifestyle, whether you were born Hebrew or Gentile. But more than that, it will detail how the faithful have been, or are striving to be, fruit bearers as they walk the path of righteousness toward the kingdom. We turn to our next guest.
My name is Lynn R. I was born March 15th, 1963. I was born in dysfunction to a mom who didn't want children and to a father who was heroin addicted. That relationship with my biological parents didn't last long because my father wasn't in the home that I could even remember, but my mother was a mother of 6 at the time, and then 7. And so, like I said, she was very abusive, verbally and physically. And this went on with the advocacy of my great-grandmother and grandmother advocating for us. And so I lived with my mother until I was about 8 years old. And my twin sisters and I were rescued from that environment to go over to greener pastures. We thought going to live with my grandmother was much better because my grandmother first of all, she was a recovering alcoholic and her health was ailing, but we lived in a clean house. We ate regularly. I went to school on a regular basis, which all of those didn't occur when we lived with my mom. So my earliest recollection of a creator or a higher power, God, was when I was 8 years old and I was sent around the corner to the local Baptist church. And I personally, in my mind, didn't have any knowledge of religion. So I was going around the corner because I was sent, number one. Number two, I was going to see what I saw and hear what I heard. And I was going basically to eat because they gave food out every Sunday. And so I would go there and I would, like I said, basically just go because I was sent. Well, I can be cool about the age of 15. Like really, I had always prayed, and so I had prayed as a child too. Since I had started going to that church I prayed as a child. However, I can remember specifically praying for my family. I prayed for my grandmother who was ailing, and I said to God to please keep her healthy enough for me to reach adulthood, which was considered 18 years old. And I said, please don't let my grandmother die until I'm 18 so I can be on my own. And I prayed for an uncle who was my favorite uncle at the time, who was consumed. He was an alcoholic who was previously a heroin addict. And so he was struggling with alcoholism at the time. And I used to pray every night, God, please let my grandmother see me through until I am old enough to go on my own. And please, God, let my uncle heal him from alcoholism. And so when I was 15, miraculously, I thought my uncle had stopped drinking, and he was applying for jobs, and he also was just off of the alcohol. So I was elated. I said, oh, wow, God answered. He heard me, and he answered my prayer. And unfortunately, that same uncle tried to sexually molest me in his sober state. So I was not free of predators in the house, and I did report it to my grandmother, and her response was, those things happen. And so going forward, my grandmother passed away before I turned 19, and I was still in high school, struggling to get out of it. And my grandmother, she was an inspiration to me graduating high school. And I say that because we had a conversation when I was 16 years old about my potential, and my grandmother said to me that I was not college material. Well, that right there, it just rang in my head, and it propelled me to finish school. So backtracking, remembering my first encounters with the Creator, with God. I am going through my teenage years, and I heard about the good news, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and coming from dysfunction, not knowing my history, going into the Kazart system of schooling and not having any leadership or spirituality in the home, I bought into anything. I was a leech. I was a sponge. I was desperate. I was seeking for love and acceptance anywhere I could get it. And so this sounded clean, this sounded good, this sounded right, because it was all over the airwaves. It was all in the streets, corners. Christianity was on every corner in my neighborhood. It was the church everywhere. I graduated high school. Mind you, I couldn't read past the first grade when I graduated high school. And I had an encounter one evening. I said, God, how am I going to read your Bible if I can't read? You have to teach me how to read. And lo and behold, I learned how to read. I didn't go to any school. I didn't go anywhere. I believe it was, now I know it was Yah, but at the time, I felt that God had miraculously empowered me to read his word. And so I would always tell people throughout my young life, I said, I'm different. I'm cut from a different cloth. I'm not regular. And so I didn't know what I was saying, but I just felt that I was different. And I didn't know that I was set apart at the time. Then having children, 4 sons, birthing 3, inheriting 1. And my last son is by my husband, whom I'm married to now for almost 30 years. But going through, I always called on Jesus. I always said, Jesus, help me, save me. Well, first of all, I got shot in my leg just walking in the streets of New York City on a dinner break from a job that I had with the city. And ballistics say it should have hit me in the head, but it hit me in my thigh. Thanks be unto Yah. And so that was 25. And I had 2 children at that time. And then in the same year, I was hit in the head by my second son's father, and I had an infection around my brain, and I went to the hospital. They ignored me, so I passed out, and then they took care of me. And I called on Jesus at the time, and so again, I prayed and asked to be forgiven for living with a man that was not my husband, and basically that was my prayer. And so moving on, I'm still looking for the right church, and I'm going from house to house, and I'm saying to myself throughout the years, I'm saying, Lynn, this isn't right. This something's going on. Like the same things that's going on outside of the church are going on inside. Is this of God? This is not of God. And I kept saying to myself, and then I started learning about the 501c3 and what that meant, and how pastors had a script in order to, talk to the congregation. They couldn't go beyond certain boundaries because they were binded by the federal government, because that was the exchange they got for their not paying taxes. And I was like, wait a minute. This isn't something that I want to be a part of. Going through life, and I'm still praying. And then I got fed up. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I called out and I said, this past year has really been a quest for the truth. And I've always prayed for the truth, and I've always said, I want to know the truth. I said, I'm tired of it. I just want to know the truth. And this past March, I volunteered to go with someone I hardly knew, a friend of mine's cousin, and she was getting her life coach certificate, and she had to go to California. And I told her, listen, I'll assist you and be your support. And I truly thought that I was going to support her, but at the same time, inside, I wanted a spiritual rejuvenation. And I had been praying, and I was like, so I got to California in March of this year, and I went into the hotel, and my partner, she went to her gathering. And I started crying out, and I said, what is your name? I need to know your name. You have to tell me your name. I'm crying out to you. I don't want to call. And I said, and what is this with all of these translations of this Bible? How do I know which one to read? And so I started being enlightened right there in that hotel room in California. I started finding different sites. I started finding different information about who Jesus was. I started finding out. And let me tell you, when I found out about who Jesus was, I almost passed out. I said, wait a minute. I said, wait a minute, I'm 55 years old. I'm not a kid. You mean to tell me that I've been walking in this deception for all this time?
To listen to the full audio of this podcast, or to download a free MP3 version, visit our website, kingdompreppers.org, by clicking the link in the description. And if you're striving to bear fruit for Yah and would like to be featured in a future podcast episode, write us through the site using the contact form at the bottom of the Live in Hebrew section and request a fruit bearers interview.